Veteran French director Jacques Audiard takes arguably the biggest gamble of his career with the eccentric, genre-bending, Spanish-language musical Emilia Pérez. Set in Mexico, it deals with female empowerment, cartel violence and the epidemic levels of disappearances in the country, as well as gender reassignment surgery and transitioning, all explored with endearingly shoddy song and dance numbers. It's a startling departure for Audiard, but in some ways it's also a consolidation of themes of reinvention that he has been exploring on and off throughout his career. His 1996 breakthrough picture, A Self-Made Hero, followed an imposter protagonist who fraudulently claimed to have been a hero of the French resistance, a prophet-starred Tar Rahim, who begins the film as a friendless teenage delinquent out of his depth in an adult prison and ends it as a kingpin in organized crime. More recently there was Deepin, the story of a former Tamil tiger who adopts a new persona as a family man claiming asylum in France. Alongside notions of a new identity in Audiard's work, there's frequently a sense that some stain of the old one lingers, like blood splatters on a wall that show through a fresh layer of paint. Deepin, for example, finds himself drawing on the violence of his old life in order to defend his new one. These themes, spiced up and at times somewhat overcooked, are central to the director's latest film, which is loosely inspired by a throwaway story strand in the 2018 novel Ecout by Boris Razan. Manitas Del Monte is a notorious Mexican drug cartel boss. His is a hyper-macho world in which masculinity is measured in muscle and fear. But Manitas has realized that not only was he born into the wrong body, but also the wrong life. He decides to pursue gender-affirming surgery. As a woman, he will leave behind cartel culture forever by working to help its victims. To do all this, he employs Rita, a put-upon lawyer, whose brilliant mind is wasted on drudge work for her male boss and scumbag clients. Rita locates a world-leading surgeon, organizes the operation, engineers Manitas' disappearance and relocates his grieving wife, Jesse, and 2 children to a place of safety. And Emilius isn't the only transition. The already bonkers premise gets weirder. The film itself changes identity as the story unfolds. From a gritty crime thriller to a glitzy soap opera to an Almodovar-esque melodrama, all tied together with song and dance interludes. It's this last aspect that initially feels like the biggest gamble, not least because of the variable quality of the music. There's nothing here that's claw your own ears off unlistenable, but neither is there much that you'll be humming on the way home from the cinema. Yet, while it initially seems bizarre that Audiard chose to tell this story as a musical, very quickly it becomes clear that a story this wildly outlandish, with this many tonal shifts, could only work as a musical. Moments such as Rita walking out of a court of law, to be greeted by the synchronized mop-wielding of a chorus of singing cleaning ladies acts as a crucial shortcut to the suspension of disbelief required elsewhere in the film. On the one hand, it's a gloriously trashy and flamboyant potboiler. The performances are great fun. S musical numbers crackle with energy and anger. Trans actor Gaskin stalks through the picture like an immaculately manicured lioness. And Gomez is just phenomenal as the bratty trophy wife, who gets a taste of fulfillment and will burn the world down for more of it. It's a riotously entertaining one-off. On the other hand is the question of whether the earnest, but somewhat pulpy handling of cartel violence trivializes the matter. The scale of abductions and disappearances in Mexico is a national tragedy that many of the country's filmmakers have addressed, in dramas such as Fernanda Valada's Identifying Features and Amat Escalante's Lost in the Night, and Tatiana Huzo's documentary Tempested. Emilia Pérez, though, is somewhat removed from the realities of cartel activities in Mexico, not only through the use of fantasy elements and musical devices, but because it was shot on a soundstage in France, with no Mexican actors in the central roles, by a director who doesn't speak Spanish. This would undermine the film's authenticity, but for the fact that authenticity was never going to be the main priority of a movie that contains a boisterous musical number about vaginoplasty, and perhaps that's enough. Emilia Pérez might not have anything new to say about the more than 100,000 people who have disappeared in Mexico since records began in the 1960s. The film's messaging on female empowerment and living authentically might border on the trite. The means of delivering that message, however, does at least feel genuinely fresh and new.